Okay, so ready to dive into a topic we've probably all encountered at some point. You know those friendships that feel less like happy hour and more like a danger zone?
Yeah, definitely.
And this article you sent over, it does not mess around. It's like it goes way beyond just like spotting the toxic friends.
Right.
It's like a whole psychology deep dive into like, why do these relationships, why do they hook us in, and how do they manage to drag on for so long, even when we know, like, deep down, this is not good for me.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because we all hear those surface level red flags, right? Like, oh, tons of drama, lots of negativity, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
This article, like, digs way deeper. And it's fascinating.
It is.
It reveals these like almost invisible mechanisms
Yeah.
that keep us trapped in these dynamics.
Yeah. One of the things that really jumped out at me was this whole concept of trauma bonding in friendships. I feel like we hear about trauma bonding, but usually it's in the context of romantic relationships.
Right.
But like in friendships, that just feels next level.
It is. And you know what's so interesting is the article argues that toxic friends actually kind of thrive on this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They create this cycle, these emotional highs and lows,
Okay.
where that validation or that support occasionally becomes so powerful because it's so infrequent
Right.
that you crave it.
It's like you're chasing it.
You crave those little crumbs,
Well, like, oh.
even in the midst of all this chaos.
So it's almost like you become addicted to the unpredictable good moments, even if they're surrounded by like a lot of bad.
Exactly. And think about it this way. It's almost like those behavioral psychology experiments where they would study like intermittent reinforcement. Remember, they'd be looking at like, okay, how often does a reward have to be given to create a really strong habit?
Right.
And it turns out that when you give those rewards unpredictably, you know, now and then, it actually creates a far more powerful pull than if the rewards are consistent.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of what this article is saying is happening in these friendships.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Where you're clinging on, you're hoping for that next hit of validation.
Oh, it's like a hit, like you're getting a little.
It's like that little dopamine rush.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And the article doesn't stop there. It dives into narcissistic friends, which I feel like honestly can be just as, if not more insidious, because they can be so subtle.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't even realize what's happening.
It's not always that like stereotypical larger than life narcissist.
Right.
It's more often this subtle control.
Right.
This need to be the center of attention.
Yes.
Even if it means kind of dimming your light to make theirs shine brighter.
Oh, 100%. They're like the masters at the backhanded compliment. Like you land that promotion you've been working towards and it's like, oh, wow, they actually gave that to you. Must have been slim pickings.
Exactly. You know, instead of celebrating your success,
Yes.
they find a way to undermine it.
Yes.
And shift that focus right back to them.
Oh.
It's such a classic narcissistic tactic. And over time, that constant, you know, subtle erosion can really do a number on your self-esteem.
Oh, it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, you know?
Yeah.
You don't even realize it's happening, and then suddenly you're like, wait a minute, why am I questioning?
Exactly.
Why am I questioning my accomplishments? This is...
And that's exactly what the narcissist wants.
Oh, gosh.
Right? They feed off that sense of control, that superiority.
Oh, wow. So we've got trauma bonding, we've got narcissistic tendencies. I mean, are there any other friendship landmines that we should be aware of? Because this article is really... I feel like we should give like a trigger warning or something because it's a crash course in toxic relationship red flags.
Well, buckle up because this next one, it's a classic.
Okay.
And it's often the most frustrating to deal with. We're talking about passive-aggressive friends.
Ugh.
The masters of indirect communication.
They're the worst.
Right. The kings and queens of I'm fine, when really everything is not fine.
Oh, the worst.
The article defines it as this pattern of expressing negative feelings, but indirectly, right?
Right.
So it's subtle digs, it's backhanded compliments.
Yes.
It's that sullenness mixed with plausible deniability.
Yes. It's like so frustrating.
Right.
Because you're like, did they just, or am I?
Right. Are you imagining it?
Yeah.
But they're upset about something, but good luck getting them to tell you.
Right. Like, what is happening? It's like having a conversation with a brick wall.
It is.
Because you're like, hello, and they're just like, silence.
And you're just like, am I overreacting?
Yeah.
Do they mean to say that? Or should I just let it go?
Oh, it's the worst. Okay, so how do you deal with that? Because, I mean, you can't just ignore it, can you? But then you don't want to call them out, or do you?
Right, because if you ignore it...
Because then it's like, then I'm just stewing.
Right, you're just letting that resentment fester.
Yes, exactly.
But if you call them out in the heat of the moment, it can really backfire.
Oh, totally.
So the article suggests a different approach, which I think is really interesting. So instead of like charging in guns blazing with the accusations,
Right.
try a calmer but still direct approach.
Yeah.
So let's say your friend, they forget to invite you to a party with your mutual friends again.
Ugh, the worst.
Instead of seething about it or, making a sarcastic comment later, the article suggests trying something like, hey, I noticed I wasn't invited to the party the other night. Is everything okay?
Oh, that's good. So you're acknowledging it happened.
Yes.
But you're not being like, blamey. And you're giving them a chance to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, you're right, or whatever it is.
Exactly. And they might get defensive.
Right.
They might deny it, but at least you've opened the door for some honest communication.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And if they continue with the passive-aggressive behavior,
right.
well, that tells you a lot about the friendship.
It does. It really does. Okay. So we've covered a lot of like toxic territory here, but the question I have, and I'm sure our listeners right there with me, is why do we stay?
Right.
Like, what is it about these unhealthy dynamics? Why are we so stuck?
It's a really good question.
It's the $1,000,000 question.
It is. And the article really dives headfirst into this whole psychology of why we cling, even when it's hurting us, And I thought this was really interesting. One of the biggest factors is that fear of the unknown, the fear of being alone, that fear of abandonment.
Totally, because even if a friendship is causing you stress, sometimes the thought of ending it and being alone can feel even scarier. That saying, better the devil you know.
Right, exactly.
It's at least, ugh.
At least there's something familiar there.
Right.
Even if that familiar is kind of crummy.
Right, exactly. Oh, it's so true, though. It's a primal thing.
It is. It's a very powerful instinct. And often the article talks about this. It's rooted in way deeper issues.
Oh, interesting.
Our early experiences, even our childhood attachment styles can play a huge role.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So if you experienced a lot of abandonment early on,
right,
or inconsistent, emotional support,
right,
you might be more likely to cling to any relationship.
Interesting.
Even a toxic one, just to avoid that feeling of being alone again.
It's almost like we're trying to rewrite a painful past, but we're just perpetuating a painful present.
Exactly. We're drawn to what feels familiar,
right,
even if it's not healthy. But the good news is awareness is that first step to breaking free.
Okay, good.
And this is a big one. The article really emphasizes the importance of building your own self-worth.
Oh,
a way to combat this. When you truly value yourself, when you value your needs,
right,
you're less likely to just settle for those crumbs.
Right, you deserve more.
You deserve more.
Yes. And speaking of, those external pressures, the article also talks about how, societal conditioning can keep us stuck in these, friendship traps.
Oh, 100%.
It's we're taught from such a young age, friends are forever. Never give up on your friends.
Right, best friends forever.
Right, exactly. And loyalty is important in any relationship, but it's almost like we're conditioned to prioritize that over our own well-being.
Right, and it's that black and white thinking that gets us.
Yeah, for sure. It's like those friendship bracelets we used to make,
Right.
Once they're on for life, consequences be damned.
Exactly. And that's what the article's challenging.
Right,
It's what if we reframe ending a friendship not as this terrible failure,
right,
not as this mark against us as people, but as this powerful act of self-care, as this chance to create space for growth, not just for ourselves,
right,
but potentially even for the friend that we're letting go of.
100%, yeah. It's about recognizing that sometimes, loving yourself means walking away from something that's not serving you.
Exactly. Sometimes walking away is the healthiest choice.
Yes. For everyone involved.
For everyone involved, absolutely.
So let's say you've realized, okay, I'm in a toxic friendship. I am choosing myself. I am ready to break free.
Right.
What are your options? Because thankfully, the article does not leave you hanging. It doesn't just say, good luck, figure it out.
You're on your own.
Right. It actually gives you some practical steps. It gives you a roadmap for how to navigate this, which I really appreciate because I feel like it can be such a what do I do? So it gives us 3 main options: gradual withdrawal, encouraging mutual growth, and then seeking professional support. Let's break those down.
Let's do it because I think this is where the rubber meets the road, right?
100%. Yeah. Okay. So gradual withdrawal, the first option.
Yeah.
That sounds like honestly my speed Slow fade, less drama. Am I getting that right?
You're exactly right. It's like the low-key uncoupling of the friendship world. So you're not ghosting them completely,
Right.
but you are gradually decreasing contact. You're setting those boundaries. You're slowly kind of phasing them out of your life. And the article suggests this is a good option if the friendship isn't like overtly toxic, but it's just like draining your energy, or it's simply just not serving you anymore.
Yeah, like that friend who's just constantly negative, always bringing the mood down.
Yes. The energy vampire.
Yeah.
This is a good one to try with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, what about option 2, encouraging mutual growth? That sounds a little trickier, but I like that there's a potential for a more positive outcome, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely takes more courage, but it can be so worth it if both friends are on board, right?
Right.
And this one really hinges on communication. That honest, sometimes difficult conversation
Well, here we go.
with your friend about what's not working,
Oh, yeah.
about the unhealthy dynamics. You're laying it all out there,
Yeah.
and you're seeing if they're open to doing the work. And this is key, together,
Together.
to make things right.
So it really does require vulnerability, like on both sides.
Yes.
And a willingness to change.
Absolutely. Both friends have to be truly invested in making the relationship healthier. But, the article talks about if you both go into it with open hearts, with a commitment to growth,
Yeah.
it can be like this incredibly rewarding experience,
Yeah. I love that, like that your friendship can have a second act,
Right.
that it's not just doomed.
It can evolve.
What if the friend's not receptive to that? What if they just like shut down, or they turn it around and make it like your fault?
Well, that's where this third option comes in. And I feel like it's one we don't talk about enough when it comes to friendships. And that's seeking professional support.
Oh, interesting.
Because we think therapy,
Romantic relationship.
romantic relationship, or some major life crisis.
Right.
But it can be so helpful for navigating these tricky friendships as well.
Yeah, because it's like there's still, I feel like, such a stigma sometimes around like, oh, I'm going to therapy for a friendship.
Right. It's like just a friendship.
Yeah, like minimize it.
Right.
But honestly, like, a therapist can provide that like neutral, objective space to process your feelings and like help you figure out how to deal with the situation.
Yeah. They can help you set those boundaries.
Right.
They can help you learn how to communicate more effectively. Maybe they even help you come to terms with the fact that, it might be time to let go,
Right.
even if the other person isn't on board.
Yeah, 100%. Wow. Okay, this whole deep dive has just been like honestly eye-opening. But like the article does a great job of helping us spot those like toxic traits in other people, but how do we turn that lens inward, How do we make sure we're not the toxic friend?
That is such an important question, right?
Yeah.
It requires this level of self-awareness that a lot of us, we kind of shy away from.
Right, it's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I think even though the article doesn't directly address it, it gives us a good framework for self-reflection. Think about that discussion we had about passive aggression.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, we all have those moments,
Right.
right? Where it feels easier to make a little sarcastic comment
yeah.
or, that backhanded compliment
Absolutely.
than to just like have the conversation,
Right. Oh, 100%. But it's so true what you said, those little digs, they add up.
They do.
They might seem harmless in the moment, but like over time.
It's that death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yes, exactly. So maybe it's just about like taking a pause and saying, okay, am I really being honest here?
Yeah.
Or am I just trying to avoid conflict at this other person's expense?
Exactly. And maybe it even means having those conversations with our friends where we're like, hey, have you ever felt like I was being dismissive of your feelings? Or have you ever felt like I wasn't really listening?
Oh, that's a good one.
And it takes courage to have those conversations.
It does, yeah.
But it's so essential if we want to have those healthy, trusting relationships.
Yeah, you're so right. Ugh. And something else kind of going back to what you're saying that really resonated with me was that whole section on enabling.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'd ever really thought about that as being a form of toxicity before.
Right. It's like, how can supporting someone be toxic?
Right, exactly. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the world of friendships.
That's good, the bad,
The
and
good, the bad, the ugly, all of it.
all the feels.
All the feels. Until next time, everyone, keep those conversations honest, those boundaries strong, and those friendships real.